quick question.
Sure.
Are you going to?
Okay. So we have everybody filing in. We're so excited to see you. We were just joking about the fact that we're all on the East Coast and it's 8 o'clock is pretty late for our brains. So, if we muddle along here, just bear with us because some of our brains shut down. My brain shuts down at 4 o'clock in particular. So for those of you who are brand new to us or maybe stumbled on our YouTube channel or stumbled on the live of this on the Women in Publishing Summit Facebook page, I'm Alexa Bigwharf. I'm the host of the Women in Publishing Summit, which is more than just an annual conference. It is a monthly training and workshop. We have training and workshops every single month. We really focus on building a community and bringing women in the publishing industry together, whether you're an author, an editor, a publisher, a book cover designer, a formatter, a marketer, anything in the sphere of helping books get made and into this world. We welcome you into our circle. We are hosting our annual event on March 1st through the 4th. So if you are here and haven't gotten a ticket yet, I really, really strongly encourage you to go ahead and get a ticket as soon as you can at womeninpublishingsummit.com. The price is currently on early bird at $50 off. It will leave early bird special at the end of the day on Sunday. So grab your ticket before Sunday. So each year before the conference, we do some type of special webinar in the evening so that our folks who can never attend Steph Live during the day get an opportunity to come in. And this particular one we're talking about, I think is really relevant to a lot of people, whether you are just thinking about publishing a book, whether you're writing your book, whether you're in that stage of trying to decide what to do, what route to go, how to publish, all of those things, or whether you've published one way and are considering going a different way, or you're switching genres and may consider a different route. It's a really important topic. So we're going to be hearing from 5 different authors and their different journeys on what they have done, how they got there, and why they chose the route that they chose to get there, I believe is one of the questions. Hopefully y'all will hit, because I think before you can really decide many, many other things, you have to really take a good look at how you're going to publish. Because your route, if you decide to self-publish, is going to be immensely different than your route if you decide to traditionally publish. And then there's the nice little area of hybrid press and even the self-publishing assist option that's in the middle. So the cool thing about publishing these days is that there really is a way that can accommodate every author out there, but deciding which way to go is a big decision. And then once you've made that decision, you can start planning out everything else in your process on how to get published. So I'm going to quickly introduce you. Before I introduce the panel today, I want to remind people of a couple things. If you need closed captioning, that is available. You just press on the CC button in the bottom of your Zoom and that will come up. A recording will be provided. It will be emailed out to everybody who registered, or you can see it on the Women in Publishing Summit Facebook page or the Write, Publish, Sell YouTube page. And, give us at least 24 to 48 hours to send that recording out. And if you have questions, please make sure you're using the Q&A box. We will have a bit of time at the end to ask these ladies the questions and get answers of all your burning questions for the things that they have done. But if you want to chit chat with each other or share information or do whatever you want to do in the chat, that's fine. But put your questions in questions only, please, not comments, because we want to make sure that we're able to get through the questions in that Q&A box, and we'll make sure all of those get answered. Okay, so today we have a group of wonderful authors here, and I'm just going to quickly read them a little bit about all of them. And I hope I should have asked you how to pronounce your name. So I am so sorry. I'm going to give my best. And if I mess up the name, please feel free to correct me. So Beverly Armento, is that correct?
That's good. That's good.
Beverly is a former college professor. She recently had her first book released, an award-winning memoir titled Seeing Eye Girl, a memoir of madness, resilience, and hope. She lives in the Atlanta area and is working on her second book. We have Patricia Bowen. Did I get that right?
Oh, yes.
Yay. Pat is a retired in-house copywriter who created ads, catalogs, training manuals, and corporate speeches. She writes both short stories and speculative fiction and self-publishes on a proverbial shoestring budget. Isn't that the truth? She describes herself as an outdoor girl and lives in Woodstock, Georgia. Then we have Kristen. I know I'm not going to get this right. Deprin. Deperin. Okay, I put the accent in the wrong place. That sounds more Southern.
That's
Deperin.
right. I am from the South originally, but yeah,
But
Christy
you live in
Deverin.
in California now?
I do.
Okay, so
I'm neighbors with your assistant. How exciting is that?
oh, that's so exciting. Yay, Nancy. Or Raywin. Which one? They're both in
Nancy.
California.
Mhm.
Cool. So Christy is a busy mother with a background in drama and marketing. Her bilingual picture book, Heart in the Sand, is based on the story of a rescue dog and her husband that she and her husband fostered for a week and ended up adopting. She raised funds for the printing of her book through Kickstarter, which is such an interesting conversation to be had. She lives in Concord, California with her husband and 2-year-old son. Then Kathy Manos Penn.
Yes.
Kathy describes herself as a corporate escapee. She went from crafting business communications to plotting a cozy mysteries series with a sassy cat and loyal dog. She has worked with hybrid publishers and self-published. She lives in Dunwoody, Georgia with her 4-legged office assistants. And then Christine Anderson. If I mess that up, we got problems. Christine is our moderator tonight. She's the one who proposed this panel to us, which we thought was just such a great idea to hear. As you've already heard from these bios, they've all not only publishing different types of books, but all on a different route as well. So Christine is a retired educator and freelancer who has written for newspapers and magazines around the country. Crooked Truth, a historical novel based on a family story, was published by Mercer University Press. University presses is really something that people don't ever even think about. So I hope you're going to talk a bit about that. And has been nominated for several awards, including the 2021 Georgia Writers Debut Novel of the Year. She lives in Smyrna, Georgia with her husband and a house full of books. So I am so excited to hear from all of you tonight. I'm actually going to turn off my camera and mute myself, but I'll be back. When you see my camera turn on, that means that's your time check. That means it is time for us to get into the questions so we can wrap up at the hour point. But this is such a great way for us to hear about different routes to publishing and different reasons that you came into it. So thanks, ladies. And Christine, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Alexa. And welcome, everyone. So glad we've got such a big crowd. I love seeing where people are from and the little messages. And I think that's the big plus about Zoom. You can get people from all over the country to join in. Before the panelists begin, I'd like to give you a little background about the current publishing situation. And like so many other things in this life, there's good news and bad news. But because I'm basically an optimist, I'm going to save the good news till last. The bad news is that smaller publishing houses, and many of you, if you are going the traditional route, probably know this, are being absorbed or consolidated with many of the bigger houses, primarily the big five, which is Harper, Hachette, Penguin Random House, Macmillan, Simon and Schuster. So it's harder and harder to get published by a traditional house. It's very, very competitive. The good news is that people are still reading and writing books. An estimated 500,000 to 1 million writers published books traditionally last year, and twice that number self-published. It's harder to get an exact number on self-published authors because many of those are print on demand and many don't have an ISBN number. The even better news, I think, is that people, according to Publishers Weekly, are buying print copies. During the pandemic, there was almost a 10% increase in print copy books. So we are still reading, holding a book in our hands. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to the panel and give you folks the first question, which is, what are you currently writing and how did you happen to get interested in that genre? And Beverly, if you want to go ahead and kick us off.
Well, I'll show you a picture. This is actually my debut book, if you will. Even though I've done a lot of publishing and writing before as a college professor, this is the first book for the general audience. Seeing Hi Girl is a memoir about growing up in an abusive, dysfunctional home and the role that my teachers played to allow me to develop my personality and to feel like I was a strong, capable person. And so the book is in part trying to get the reader to focus a little bit on adverse childhood experiences, which cut across a wide range of issues, and also to focus on the important role of adult mentors. So, and I have published with She Writes Press, an independent hybrid press that I'll tell you about a little bit later on.
Thank you, Beverly. Patricia.
Yes, I have published 3 novels of speculative fiction. Speculative, they're not exactly science fiction, but they're about, it's a trilogy about, that spans around 40 years when a man comes from the future with a cure for cancer. And so that was my first entree into writing fiction, but I soon understood that my attention span was a little too short for writing too many novels. So I started getting into writing short stories, and I published a book called Unintended Consequences of 16 short stories and a novella. And I've since stayed with short stories. I've taught them at Kennesaw State University here in Georgia, and I now lead a short story group for the Atlanta Writers Group here. And that's what I've been spending most of my time on.
Thank you, Patricia. Christy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christy, and I love and I'm passionate about children's picture books. And actually, I'm in my son's room right now, and I will show you how many picture books we have. So many. It's amazing. We went to the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and that's only half of our collection. They're rainbow coated, of course. So yes, I write children's picture books and also do puppets to animate them, and I read them on YouTube. And I'm right now writing a memoir about motherhood, and specifically about surviving the first 2 years of motherhood. And I'm writing that for unity.org, and I'll put them into chat here. And I'm excited to try a little bit longer form in this next chapter.
Thank you, Christy. And Kathy.
Okay, well, as you heard earlier, I write cozy mysteries. This is the first of my 8 books. I'm currently working on the 9th one in the series. And how did I come to write cozy mysteries, much less ones that are set in England? I previously, I worked in corporate America. I did a lot of writing there, but it was all presentations, speeches, a few leadership training, things like that. And then I noticed somebody wrote in the chat about wishing there were some nonfiction people here. Well, I also I'm still a columnist for a small local weekly paper. And I did that while I was working, and it was just fun. I got to write whatever struck my fancy. And sometimes I wrote in my dog's voice. And so the first thing I published when I retired was a collection of my columns. And I went to a hybrid publisher to do that. Thank goodness, because I knew nothing about what I was doing. And, you know, I just sold it locally. I never thought anybody else would want to read it, but it was on Amazon. Then I wrote a small book in my dog's voice, and I even wrote columns like that for a small town in North Carolina. And then I was talking to somebody about formatting my book. You heard Alexa mention formatting. There's, I don't know how to do that, although I did teach myself this year, so I may do more of that going forward. And she talked to me, she interviewed me, she asked me lots of questions. What do you like? What do you read? Asked me to write a short story. And she came back to me and said, I think you should write a cozy mystery. To which I replied, what do I know about writing fiction, much less a cozy mystery? But I did. I thought, well, I'm retired. What the heck? I'll give it a try. The first one came out in 2020. It was self-published, just loaded it right up onto Amazon. You hire somebody to do your covers, et cetera, et cetera. And I still can't believe that I'm working on the 9th book and it's 3 years later. It has been a blast.
Thank you, Kathy. Like several of our panelists, I come out of education. I was an English teacher, and I also worked as a freelance writer for newspapers and magazines. And when I got closer to retirement, I thought about writing a book. I had a family story that really stuck with me, and I had some experience working with a boy with Down syndrome. And both those things became very important in developing my characters and stories. And I foolishly thought, you've been an English teacher, you've analyzed books, you've critiqued books, so you should be able to write a book. I vastly underestimated what's involved in writing a novel or historical fiction. I joined a writers group, I got a coach, I went to conferences and killed hundreds of trees doing revision. And finally, I had a manuscript ready to go, ready to start to query. But I didn't have much luck querying. No one said, I've just got to have this book. I know I can sell it. It's going to be a bestseller. And I'll tell you how I got it published on our next round of questions. But now I'm going to ask the panel, how did you publish and what were the advantages and disadvantages in following that path?
So being at the start of the alphabet and also being the shortest, I was always the first in line. So Christina set me up as the first to start the story. Not knowing much really about the publishing options, when I felt that I had a completed manuscript, which was after many years, after taking many courses on writing creative nonfiction, learning that as a new way of writing, because writing professional education pieces is not the same at all as creative nonfiction. So I had to learn through many classes, and each of those classes also acted as critique members. So this went on for a long time. And when after exhaustive developmental edit and a lot of revision and refinement, I felt like I had a decent manuscript. And I started submitting to agents and editors primarily through the Atlanta Writers Club. And I was really encouraged because I never walked away from a conference without one or more Best Manuscript awards. So I thought, look at that. I got a great manuscript, and these were all from, either reputable agencies or big name traditional publishers. But no one actually bit on picking it up. So someplace through this long period of time, I had taken a course, Write Your Memoir in 6 months, with Brooke Warner, among others, who is the publisher of She Writes. And I started to do some research on She Writes Press. I was already impressed with the quality and know-how that I saw Brooke demonstrate in the class that I took with her. So I applied, I submitted a portion of the manuscript to She Writes Press. Now, as I said before, this is called an independent hybrid press. She Writes itself has been around for 10 years and has a good reputation for publishing high quality books. Now, I know I need to move on to the pros and cons. So I do want to say that as I talk about the pros and cons of working with a hybrid press, I am really talking about She Writes Press and my experience with She Writes, because in recent years, a number of other groups have come in, called themselves hybrid, and apparently it's given the name hybrid kind of a bad name. So my experience in terms of the pros is that I was accepted into a system of highly professional individuals, all women, by the way, who meticulously, professionally, and carefully moved my book along the entire process from manuscript to published book. That included, I'd already had a developmental edit on my own. Of course, they did an extensive copy edit and proofing when all the refinements were said and done. And and they know what they're doing. There was no fooling around. This is very streamlined. The author knows what is coming next and knows what to expect. So the author is a big part of the process. I may have neglected to say that hybrid form is really a form of a business model. And the business model views the author as a part of the entire process. That includes paying for part of the process. So the author makes an investment in her book. And the flip side of that is, if your book does not do well, you're not going to make back your investment, like any other kind of investment that you make. So it's a sort of a market model that I bought into. With She Writes Press, there is a distribution system. So your book is found in bookstores across the country, not only on Amazon, but of course it's on Amazon like most other books are. Let's say it's a huge sisterhood. There's a community of women who support one another, who read each other's books, who do reviews on the books, who come together in conferences and that sort of thing. So you feel like you're part of something, some community. You're not just in there by yourself. Now the con, of course, there are cons. The major problem, as I see it, is that certain influentials in the field view hybrid publishing as self-publishing. This is not to put down self-publishing, but there is sort of a hierarchy in this entire business. And there's also a hierarchy when it comes to the way that outlets, that is newspapers, magazines, and so on, view books that are independently published or hybrid published or self-published. And many outlets will not and do not review your book. So, that's kind of big. In addition, certain contests are not open to independently published books or self-published books. So those are the major issues that I see. They're all sort of surmountable because there are contests you can enter and so on. So I better be quiet because we have a big panel. I think I've said enough to get you thinking about hybrid publishing.
Thank you, Beverly. Patricia.
Yeah, I think my local logistical path kind of paralleled Beverly's, but I chose to take the self-publishing route. I've been very active in the Atlanta Writers Club, as she has for several years. And I had heard so many stories from people about changing agents, changing publishers, how long it takes to get a book to market. And in that whole process, when I was writing the first of my 3 novels, fortuitously met a couple of women, again, a sisterhood, of writers, who had self-published many books. One of them, I don't know, 6 or 7 detective stories, another woman, 3 or 4 novels of historical fiction. And they mentored me through the process of self-publishing on Amazon and introduced me to resources for proofing and covers and whatnot. Interestingly enough, most of them in Europe. We're in a virtual world today, and it was I don't want to say it was easy, but it was an interesting process, and I learned a lot, not just about writing, but about the publishing business. And I guess the pros and cons. It was I got to market very quickly, and I guess both pro and con. It's a learning process, and I like to learn new things. It's kind of a slog to to learn how to format your own things. I mean, in the 5 or 6 years that I've been publishing novels, I have started formatting my own things, started developing my own covers. The technology has moved so quickly. There are so many tools to do it yourself, and you have to go through the learning to do it. But I think it's worth it. It's worked for me, and I've just brought out my 3rd novel and have published some other things, and so I feel like I'm keeping up with the technology. Another aspect of that is that people think they're going to get a publisher, and the publisher's just going to make this book go viral, and it doesn't happen. You have to do your own marketing today, unless you're a James Patterson or Karen Slaughter or somebody like that. You have to market, and frankly, I'd rather be writing. I don't want to have to, put a marketing plan together for my, for my books and stories, but I do it, and it works. When I market, I see the sales go up on the report, so it's worth doing. I'm happy to go through the learning curve and to understand what's happening in the industry.
Thank you, Pat. Christy, you're on.
All right. Well, I've also been taking notes for everybody, but I don't have as many notes for me. I'll do them retroactively. So pros, I used Ingram Spark, and I funded my Ingram Spark through Kickstarter. I already had a little bit of a social media following because I did a YouTube read aloud series with my puppet Paquito, which is bilingual. So I made connections with a learning company called Rockalingua and most of the elementary schools in the Northern California area. So I knew that I was going to have a good amount of sales. Plus, I had already partnered with the rescue agency that my dog was rescued from and the Pit Bull Society in Northern California. So I knew like people from the Pit Bull, I already knew I had sales at the beginning, and I have a master's in marketing. So knowing that you have sales is a really great way to start. But that was a big pro for me, knowing I already had a target audience. And another pro for me was, hi Kitty, was that I wanted to publish my book quickly. My book was my pregnancy project. So I wanted the book to come out around the first year of life of my son. And I was able to do that. And also pro was I got to pick my own illustrator. And biggest pro for me as a person who likes to read books online, I wanted the rights to my own book. There are a lot of rules and regulations about reading other people's books and about getting permission to read other people's books. So I wanted to have total artistic control and total license ownership of my own product. So those were big pros for me. Cons was mostly time. Even though time was a pro and I knew I could get my book out within about a year, the Ingram Spark process of getting the book shipped to me took time, and the shipping was something that I had factored in, but it took longer than I had expected. And I did choose to print through Ingram Spark because they also allow you to do a sample copy. And because I was doing everything myself, I was also hiring editors. Both my Spanish and my English editor didn't catch the bleed errors that happened. That was because of a formatting error on the guide from Ingram Spark. So a good friend of mine who mentored me in my self-publishing was like, save every email you have from them. So when they have a goof, or if they have a goof, you can get those books for free, which was great. So I got my first shipment of books for free, but I couldn't really sell them because they had a bleed problem. So that was kind of a bummer. The con of the formatting was definitely a big con. And then since I funded my book through Kickstarter, which was a marketing pro, it was also a con because it takes around 2.5 weeks for the Kickstarter funds to get to you. So when I budgeted for my Kickstarter money, I didn't take into account that money to be delayed. So luckily, since I already had very strong relationships with my first round of buyers, I was able to mull it over, do some free readings, and that was a-okay. But I feel like my next go round, I want to have the books in my hand before I really do that strong push so that I can make sure that that book goes to market when I say that it will.
Thank you, Christy. Kathy.
Okay, so y'all got a glimpse of my office assistant a moment ago. Puddin was in here expecting her payment, which is her nightly treats. So I mentioned earlier that I did the first couple of books I did with a hybrid publisher, and I'm glad I did because I didn't know anything about what was involved. But this next go around, because I connected with a woman who was, she called her company Authorpreneur. And so really I paid her to consult with me, and it was well worth it. And I found my own editor by asking around and, checking. I found later down the road, proofreaders. I neglected to realize that I needed proofreaders too. But the good news is when you put your book up on Amazon and you do it yourself, you can correct any little glitches. And so she walked me all the way through everything, and she formatted my books and did my covers. The pros for me, the pro is having control. The royalties are mine. I can change things when I want to, which is one reason, maybe like Patricia, I got into learning how to format. I bought the little program called Atticus, and it was pretty inexpensive, and I'm not very technological, but I have figured it out. It probably took me longer than it takes most people. And when I go back to do it again for the 9th book, I'll have to relearn it because it's been 6 months. But so I can change things at will. This is my 2nd round of covers because I learned that covers have to be to market. And the way I learned that was I signed up for Amazon Ad School because I did learn you can't just put it out there and expect people to read it or buy it or find it on Amazon. You know, no matter how good the cover is or how good the blurb is on the back or how much they like cats. So I learned how to do Amazon ads, and I can assure you that when I'm not diligent about doing them every week, 5 to 10 Amazon ads a week, I'm not making as many sales. Now I've learned how to do Facebook ads. That's not, I don't know that a hybrid publisher would do those things for you nor teach you how to do those things. It was 2017 when I did my first book, and none of that was available. So to me, the real pro is complete control, hiring the people I want to work with, setting my own deadlines. Like right now I'm behind on writing book 9, which means, you know, I have to tell the editor, the proofreader, et cetera, you know, the timeline's going to change. And the cons of self-publishing, it's like Patricia said, it takes a lot of work. You have to be a business person too. You can't just write. And if all you want to do is write, that's fine. But if you also want people to read it, you have to put in all the other work too. And so when I'm not writing or when I get stuck, you know, I try to write every day, but when I get stuck, then in the afternoon I do ads, or I still write columns. So I write columns, and that little bit of money helps fund all this other stuff too. And I would say this, I never, ever considered trying to get an agent or go the traditional route. And I doubt, no, I don't just doubt, I know I would not have 8 books out in 3 years had I tried to do that. I'd probably still be trying to get somebody to pay attention to me. And I have good reviews, so I think my product is good. And that's one thing they teach you in Amazon Ad School too, is hey, you've got to have a good book. And they'll look at you, you know, you can get some private coaching. They'll look at the blurb on the book. I've had them help me rewrite the back cover. And you can do it. Do I wish I could be in independent bookstores and Barnes and Noble? Yes. But because I chose to go just with Amazon, and I'm also in their Kindle Unlimited program, which pays me over 50% of my royalties. And if you're not familiar with that, people buy a subscription, it's like $10 a month, and they can download and read your book, and you get paid by the number of pages that are read. And you can't go wide and be on all these other platforms and still do that. So this has worked for me, and it enables me to keep going. I don't know how long I'll keep going. Like I said, I'm retired. I don't know how many more I want to write, but there's some stories I need to wrap up in this series before I feel like I could stop. I think my readers would kill me. So it's all about being in control and wanting to be a business person and make it work for you. And to me, self-publishing is the way to go.
Thank you, Kathy. I
I
think
do really want to quick show this little graphic I made. Let me share my screen real quick. I feel like when you are self-publishing, it's just good to know what you have to budget for. If you become a business, if you hire an illustrator, if you hire an editor, if you use a book formatting tool, if you purchase an ISBN, there are change costs for each upload depending on which service you use. Websites cost money, sample copies, book distribution, which a lot of us talked about, was a pro or a con depending on which way we went. And then depending on where you live, you might also need a reseller's permit. So we're all pretty familiar with this like creative flow chart, write the book, hire people, format it. But I think the nuts and bolts hopefully are coming forward in our presentation today.
Thank you, Christy. I mentioned to you that I tried to find an editor or an agent for Crooked Truth and collected lots and lots of rejections. I was getting pretty discouraged. I hadn't considered self-publishing. And then literally at the 11th hour, I heard about a contest in the Mercer catalog that they were offering for a manuscript or short story that best described the human experience in a Southern context. So 3 days before the deadline, I found one of my kids' old notebooks, put the manuscript in the notebook and FedExed it to Macon, Georgia, which is about 2 hours away from my home, and started offering prayers and lighting candles. And lo and behold, 6 months later, I get a phone call from the editor, and Crooked Truth had received the Farrell Sams Fiction Award. And I got a contract to publish. I thought, oh, my book is going to be out by Christmas. I can have it under the tree. Wrong. And this is one of the big disadvantages of working with the traditional press. You do not have any control over the timeline unless you are Stephen King or John Grisham. So my book went into a queue. And once it finally did come out, pretty much everything except the edits had been in their hands. I didn't even have much input on the cover. And I had someone who is a commercial artist who had done a cover for me, which I really liked. But the pluses were that I did have some exposure because Mercer Press is fairly well known. And I was able to enter some contests and receive some awards. And I think some people did review it who might not have reviewed it otherwise. The minuses were, as I said, little control. Once you sign that contract, you are on their time schedule. And it's kind of like being in the military. Hurry up, and wait. Very little marketing support. I'm still driving around with a box of books in my back seat and trying to arrange book club engagements, bookstore talks. And I have not made much money. So we'll see what happens with this follow-up book. If I go with Mercer again or try another route. But I think we have time for one more question, and I'm going to throw this out real quick. Most of you, myself included, have found that you have got to promote and market your own book. I know some of you have worked with publicists. What marketing or promotion strategy has been effective for you? And Beverly, I know you have a publicist.
You know, I had a great publicist. I had a 6-month contract with Books Forward. In the months preceding the launch of the book, they did a lot to help me establish a platform and to get on certain podcasts and get certain articles published and that sort of thing. Now I do not have that contract, but luckily I've learned a lot, and I'll tell you the biggest seller of my books is word of mouth. People who like the book, and some may be my friends or family, but there are complete strangers now who like the book so much that they'll buy 10 copies, give it to all the educators in their family, let me know about it, or some don't even let me know about it, but I find out along the way when a book club calls me. But word of mouth is really important. I'm also a member of the Nonfiction Authors Association. And right now they're offering a phenomenal marketing class that I'm taking and learning an awful lot. I think whoever publishes your book, even if it's one of the big, whatever they are now, 3 or 5, the author plays a major role in representing her book and trying to market the book in overt and covert kinds of ways. That means
Thank you.
subtle, not covert, subtle ways.
Hey, Pat, thank you, Beverly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my strategy is just to keep my name out there in one way or another. I belong to several writing groups, both in Georgia and South Carolina. I actually live in 2 places, so belong to those writing groups. Make sure I contribute to their newsletters. I stay active. Book clubs, all kinds of organizations. I do readings. I enjoy marketing. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy finding out what people like to read and like to get their feedback on things that I've written and other things they've read. So I just find that getting out there to me is the best way, to market my books. And right now I've just written a new series. As I said, I live part-time in South Carolina, so I'm putting out press releases for an episodic series that I've written there. And even before I've publicized it, people are buying it. So it's nice to see those reports on Amazon that, I see those little numbers going up all the time. And that's the only way I know how to do it, because nobody else is going to do it for me.
That's right.
Thank you, Pat. Christy, you got the marketing degree.
Yes. Well, also I'm seeing some questions about getting book reviews. Book reviews are really, really helpful. And I always just have a book in my back pocket. And a lot of times, if I'm in yoga class and someone compliments me, you have to be really smooth in the way you do it. But or you're just hey, it'd be really sweet if you reviewed my book. Or Facebook Marketplace is a great place where people give stuff for free. And so I'll be hey, I'll give you this. It'd be sweet if you reviewed my book. So it's it feels a little cringy at first, but the more you do it, the more graceful and nuanced you become. And it just becomes a breath. And those reviews come in. And I mean, we're a group of Southern women in this platform. So channel your inner Southern woman, find some of your inner poise, and just maybe sneak a little Southern accent in there. People will do your bidding.
Hey, y'all.
That's funny.
Thank you, Christy. Kathy, I know you have done a lot of marketing.
Well, and I'm a big fan of Amazon ads, but I also have a website. I have a social media presence, although I really don't believe that social media does as much as people think it does. But I have a newsletter. And when you have fans of for me, it's a series. I send a newsletter every 2 weeks. I have, I just culled some of it, and I've got 4,500 people on it. And, they're always asking, when is your next book coming out? And when I set up a pre-order, I get 200 or 300 pre-orders for the next book. And it's all about building those relationships. Now, I will tell you, every time my husband goes to the doctor's office, he tells them all that his wife is an author and gives out my cards. So, you never lose sight of all that stuff. But I don't know. I think the newsletter is really key. It's been 3 years. It took me a while to work up to, and I give away a short prequel to my books for people to sign up for the newsletter. And there's a link in the back of every book to the next book. And I ask for reviews. in every book. And I've been really, really fortunate that I do not lack for reviews. So that's my story.
Is there anything you have found that doesn't work or you felt was just a flat waste of time or money in terms of marketing?
I just say one more that does work. YouTube is a really powerful search engine optimization tool. So all you have to do is read a book or read part of your book. And key point here, make sure that you close caption it. So when you go into your creator tools, you need to make sure that you input your closed captioning, because that's the way that the search engine finds those keywords. And those keywords are really important to your metadata. So that's like finding that keyword, making sure that the search engine has it, make sure you say it. I'm getting thumbs up. Yes. And if you have questions, you can ask me about that. I'm happy to ask, or I'm sure Alexa too.
And speaking of, that was such good timing because I needed to pop in here to let y'all know that we are ready to do the Q&A session. Although I'm almost tempted to let you just do another round of your questions because you're answering such great stuff in your questions. I think all of you ladies will be present at some point in time during the Women in Publishing Summit, correct? I hope. I know some of you work full-time jobs, so I don't know if you'll be able to be in there all the time, but I just wanted to say that we have lots of opportunities for networking. And coffee chats and happy hours. I don't know if you've noticed in the schedule yet, if you have your ticket, we have at least 3, maybe 4 of them built in, because last year our attendees told us how valuable these sessions were, getting together and talking to people. So when you see these women, if they're able to attend any of the coffee chats and networking, make sure you say hello and ask them your questions as well. But you know what, the cool thing about this community is that we have lots and lots and lots of authors with lots of varied experiences and lots of these same types of stories, and have worked with different publishers and gone different publishing routes. So talk to each other and ask these types of questions and get these answers. We have several questions here that I want to make sure that we get to. One question that was asked over and over and over was, how long, and there is no way that we can possibly say how long it's going to take on average for timeline from draft to finish, because it truly varies by genre and by author, like truly does. So I would just like to ask each of you how long it took you with your first book. If you want to think about that for a second. I know with my first novel, it took 7 years. So that's because of a lot of reasons, but it was not a fast process. So we can go.
I can go first. My book started out as a book called Popcorn's Treasure, that when I was putting my little baby brother to bed, I would read to him. I sent it to an editor. It became a book called, from that, it became a book called X Marks the Spot. And the editor was like, if your book is about inclusion and love, you can't have an X. So now the book is called A Heart in the Sand, and it's about inclusion and love, and it has hearts. So it took, like, that whole process was like a 30-year process, but the actual time I really worked on the book was about a year. And the next book I have coming out is supposed to be written by March 1st, and I've only written like a third of it. So hopefully it'll be done soon, and that's a memoir. So
we got lots of long ones in, and we got everything from 45 days to 35 years in there. So that's a window. That's a window. Well, we hope to get faster. Anyone else want to share how long it took you on your first one?
Well,
It's good.
go ahead, Pat.
It's good to think about writing time, but if you're just starting out, you have to realize revisions are the real work. You know, I mean,
Right.
I mean, you can plow through a draft, you know, with your first thoughts, and it's all exciting, but then when you have to go back and do the work of thinking, you know, how is this going to appeal to people? You know, you go through the, go through the checklists of, you know, is my character right? Is my plot right? Or my scenes right? I mean, all these things have to be taken into consideration. That's where the real work begins. And so, I mean, for me, it took me a year from start to finish, but I'm a fast writer. But I know a lot of people, you know, as you say, it could take years.
Mhm. Okay, so some of these questions about money and things like that, I don't know if we really want to get into on here. You know, these are I'll ask the question, and if you, I don't know, I would ask each of you to go through the questions, and if there's one you feel compelled to answer, I'm sorry, I had a moment there where I was trying to find the question. Oh, there was one for Beverly on return on investment. If you want to answer that question, you can. I don't know how you all feel about that. I can tell you some people are very transparent and some people don't want to talk about it just because they don't want to talk about it.
I'm happy to
Well,
be transparent. I
okay.
like my book, I paid my illustrator $3,300. It was a 28-page book that included my cover design and my edits, and it included my it included everything. Like everything was in our contract. And what I did is I researched how much a hybrid publisher cost, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to do it for around $6,000, because everything I researched was around $7,000. I don't know if that's like still the case, but that's sort of where I went. And then I pretty much broke even. So everything that's being sold now goes into my pocket, even though I only make like 25 cents a book. But hey, it's better than nothing. So
Better than nothing. Well, you know, to your point, Christine, this is why, like, I'm sorry, did I just say that wrong? Did I just say you're Christy? I don't know. I just called you Christine. We have another Christine. That's why I called Christy. Christy. I told you my brain turns off at 4, so names are included in that. Christy. Why, especially with children's books, when you're looking at illustrations and the price can just ratchet way up really, really quickly. Why considering things like Kickstarters and other ways to get money to fund the book in advance is so important. But on the reason, really, it's not even a matter of being transparent or not, because you can go look on any publisher's website and see how much the cost is, all those kinds of things. It's more of a matter of, it's really hard to answer this question from one person's perspective, because I have over 10 authors in Purple Butterfly Press. I charge them the same package for our hybrid package. Their results, their books are produced the same way. Illustrations are different, which sometimes makes it different. Of course, the topics are different. The results of their sales are different, totally different from one author to the next. And it's usually has a lot to do with what the book is about and whether it's a topic that sells. And to someone's point in there earlier about saying that the numbers on traditional books that are published, like sometimes it's a crapshoot in the publishing industry. And that's, you know, a hard thing to say, but sometimes you think something is going to just fly off the shelves and it doesn't sell. So, and sometimes you think, oh, this one may not sell well, and it sells really well. But it really, at the end of the day, book sales come down to how much you as the author are willing to do with it, because we put in the same efforts from the publicity side and the marketing side for all of our books. And some of them just hit the mark with the librarians and retailers, and some of them don't. But when our authors get out there and they're talking to libraries and they're talking to retailers and they're talking to teachers and they're talking to parents, like that's where the sales come along. And one of the somebody in the chat, I can't remember who it was earlier, we were talking about the speaking stuff, mentioned that she sells a lot of books through speaking, because when people get out there, as Waiwana said, people know, like, and trust her. And when she goes out and does speaking, even if it's not related to the topic of her book, people buy her book because they now feel like they know her. So anyway, sorry, that I just felt like that's really, because I, you know, and I don't want to get into this thing where some person's like, oh, I made all my money back, and somebody's like, oh, I never made any of my money back, because it's so variable. It's so variable. But Christy,
it is hard though, because like it's hard because we as book people are more introverted, right? But to be a salesperson, you have to be more extroverted. So I think like putting on that mask, that coat, that pep talk, that Southern charm, that's the way you can kind of step outside your comfort zone in regards to sales.
The other thing, Alexa, is, you know, I've learned so much about writing to market. The reason this person suggested I write a cozy mystery was because they're hot.
Yes.
Well, fortunately, I enjoy it. And I know you don't want to write something you don't enjoy. That would just be a slog. But if you are open and you can do some research about cozy mystery, cozy mystery readers want to read 10 books. They don't want to read the first one until they know you've got 2 more. So that makes it easy. And then, there are some books that may be your heart's desire, but are not what people want to read. Doesn't mean it's a bad book.
Exactly. And the writing to market is a big thing. This is why so many people do wind up switching genres after I've talked to so many fiction authors who started off wanting to write women's fiction or something like that. And then somewhere along the way, they found out that rom-coms were selling off the hook, so that they just started writing those and getting them. So yeah, that can be, sorry, I got distracted by looking at the chat. I should never do that. But the conference schedule, if you're looking at the website for ticket sales, you're not going to see a full schedule. It runs basically from 10 to 6 every day. Once you get a ticket, it's got all of the schedule in there. So I just wanted to address that really quickly before I get in there. Okay, I see Christy's in there answering some questions in there. Would you like to tell everybody, Kathy, what a cozy mystery is?
Oh, yes, a cozy mystery means it has no sex on the page, no blood and gore, and no cursing. And albeit I find it difficult to not say, oh my God, when I stumble across a dead body, but you can do it. And people, it's a lot about friends, and it's a lot about women. And, those are some of the things. So.
All right. I'm not going to answer the question here, Jan, about what contest can you not enter if you're self-published, because I don't think we could give you an exhaustive list. And to be honest, that is changing all the time. I know that Brooke Warner of She Writes Press and IBPA and the Authors Guild and some other agencies have been working really hard to get hybrid press books recognized in some of the places that they weren't doing that. And it changes, and it just depends on the contest. But it looks like Christy's putting in something there, so she may have a different answer. No, she
I just subscribe.
oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see, Kathy, what hybrid publisher did you use for your first book, and were you happy with them?
I used BookLogix, and I didn't know what I didn't know. I was happy with what they gave me. At that point, they really weren't offering much in any way of marketing. So I didn't know that I maybe should be doing some other things.
On this topic, marketing is such an interesting thing, because even with traditionally published books, marketing really boils down to the author taking the first steps. But I would say, and I can't speak across the board for hybrid publishers, I can only speak for how we work and some of the hybrid publishers that I know, but I feel like hybrid publishers do a better job helping authors learn how to launch and market. That could be, I don't know. I know Brooke offers a lot of different things through She Writes Press. It's not free generally, like you pay for it at some point in time, but marketing is hard work, and it's a skill set you have to learn. So invest your time, if nothing else, in taking the time to figure out marketing stuff, looking at it, and asking questions. And in our community, there's lots of people who are doing lots of very cool marketing things. That's why we dedicate an entire day only to marketing, and then another day to business growth, which has a lot of marketing stuff in it, because that really is the hardest piece of the puzzle, is trying to figure all of that out. Okay, let's see what else. Do any of you have any red flags that you've noticed? My tongue is starting to get tired now. Like my brain is not only tired, my tongue. Red flags.
I wanted to ask you real quick. You said your newsletter comes out twice a month. How long is your newsletter? And is it all self-written?
Are you talking to me?
No, yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's just an email. And I don't know. Yes, it's all self-written. It's a little bit about who I am and about my life, because they like that kind of stuff. They want to know the author. And then I always give an update on my writing news, like I'm halfway through book 9, or I hit a rough patch on book 9, or whatever. And then I recommend books to read, because I also review books for the newspaper, and they love that. So,
do you ever give writing tips?
no. No,
But you
because I'm not a
recommend
nonfiction
books.
writer or anything, so it's just all about women and friends and writing, my writing.
Anyone have any red flags that they want to share? We are 9:05, so I'm going to wrap this up within the next couple minutes here, but red flags that you know of or have heard of for looking for the right publisher, editor, or agent.
Oh, yes, I do. There is an organization. It's a for-profit organization called the Alliance of Independent Authors,
Mhm.
ALLI, ALLI. And you pay to join, but it offers free books and resources once you pay the initial fee, and there are different levels of membership. They offer legal and business advice. They have a member database and a quarterly magazine. And I think this could be the most helpful if you are self-publishing, you have access to a watchdog desk, and that monitors the self-publishing industry. They have a rating guide of different companies and warn about substandard companies.
Yes, they are very vigilant about that. And I know Orna Ross very well. I actually used to I ran her conference for her for a couple of years. She's very committed to what she's doing, very committed to what she's doing, like hardcore self-published, go, which is great. But I would say, I'm going to give you my caveat. Every business has a bad experience, every one of them. And they are so committed to making sure that if somebody's had something bad happen to it, they publish it. So I would say most of the time, just remember that everybody has a bad experience with a customer or client at some point in time. So if you see one or two bad reviews, that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. Now, if you're looking at something that's getting tons of bad feedback, like there was press all over the place about this, the Authors Guild was talking about this like crazy about a publishing company that was refusing to give people their rights back and refusing to pay them royalties, and everybody's up in arms and doing this kind of stuff. Like that stuff's going to be out there. If you Google any company or person and reviews with that company, and you see review after review after review, or people saying this person took my money and never did what they were supposed to, that's really bad. If you're looking at hybrid publishers in particular, I would encourage you to go to the Independent Book Publishers Association website. You can Google the IBPA hybrid publisher standards checklist, and you can see the kinds of things that there really is no industry standard. Like people can literally do anything that they want to and call themselves a hybrid publisher. So IBPA Advocacy Committee put together a list of criteria that a hybrid publisher should be able to meet, most of at least, and give you some guidelines on things from that. So I know from a red flag, a big red flag we mentioned in the chat earlier, if anyone is calling themselves a hybrid press, charging you money, taking your royalties, and does not have any type of submissions process or editorial process, to me, that's a huge red flag, because that means they're just taking every book, and anybody who's doing that is not committed to editorial standards. So look at that. But I want to encourage you again that we have a lot of, there's black marks out there for sure, but there are a lot of great companies doing really good things for authors, and even some companies that I've heard horrible things about. I've had authors come back and tell me they had the best experience ever with them. So read your contracts carefully. A big red flag is somebody forcing you to sign a contract and forcing you to pay right away, saying, I can't offer this to you tomorrow unless you pay me today. No, walk away right there. But we will have several self-publishing assistant hybrid publishers, lots of them actually, in our community. So again, you can ask in coffee chats and networking if any of those companies are present, or go to the Q&A with our sponsors and talk to them and ask the questions, and be, have conversations and get answers. You never have to make a fast decision on this. Okay, and the just to wrap all of that up, I think the purpose of, and ladies, thank you so much. This was great information. All of you shared such different insights, and I really appreciate you taking your time out in an evening, especially, you know, for those of us who are, it's late, but also Christy has a little one, so I know what this time of night is like with a 2-year-old. Exactly. But, you know, it's really, it's about education. And the one thing that I can tell you, having been in this industry for a long time, you know, I would take my role as an advocate for authors very, very seriously. And one of those things is making sure that you're educated and knowledgeable on these types of topics. And we talked about self-publishing and hybrid publishing and traditional publishing, and heard the pros and cons from 5 different perspectives tonight. So there's a lot of perspectives. It's really up to each of you to do the work to learn and to research, because you don't want to go down a path that you wind up wishing and regretting that you hadn't done. So talk to people in our community, ask questions, get feedback, talk to these ladies when you see them. They all gave you their websites, so I'm sure there's a way that you can contact them on their websites as well. And if you haven't gotten your ticket yet and still want to join us, it's womenInPublishingSummit.com. Early bird pricing ends on Sunday. We've got all kinds of great things in the lineup for you over the course of 4 very busy and very energetic days. And this has been a real pleasure. And again, thank you, Christine, for pulling together this panel and for submitting it to us and bringing all this information. I'm really excited to see how things go with all of you. And just really quickly, for the sake of it, we posted your websites in there, but if everyone would like to go in and say where you can be found so that the people listening can hear that information, they may find that useful if they missed the chat way back.
I'm Christine Anderson, and my website is kfaphd@aol.com. kfaphd@aol.com.
That's your email address, right?
Right. That's my
Kathy.
email. No, that's my website.
I am.
No, your
Kathy.
website is Christine F. Anderson.
Thank you, Christy, for keeping me honest.
Welcome.
My website is KathyManosPen.com. I'm Greek. The Manos is very important. Same thing on Facebook, Kathy Manos Pen, author. So you can find me.
And my website is my name, patriciabowen.com.
I'm Beverly Armento, author.com.
And I'm Christy on the web, because my LLC is Web Studios. So I will put that in there. And Beverly, I'll put everybody's in there.
Thank you. And
Thank you,
Alexa.
Christy. Thank you, Alexa.
Well, thank you,
Christine.
ladies. This was great. And
Thank you, Nancy, for keeping me honest.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. And we will see you all very soon. I hope if you're not attending the conference with us this year, please do check out our upcoming events. We run a monthly webinar or 2 or sometimes 3. You can get on the email list to find out when those are. And we will see you all who are joining us on March 1st, which is Wednesday. So yay! Thank you.
Good to see everybody.
Good night.
Alexa,
Good night.
don't exit out yet. I need to screenshot our chat.
Did you get it?
So we'll just
Not
sit
yet.
here for a second while you get your screenshot there. You good?
Thank you. I'm good.
All right.
Got it.
All right, great. Christy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Alexa,
Yes, ma'am.
what was the attendance tonight?
I think 97 people were here.
97. Okay.
All right.
That's cool.
Thank you.
you.
ladies. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.